With Triple H warned against hiring CM Punk and more, this is Wrestling Hub. My name is John and you're watching the Wrestling Report. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. Following up on a report regarding Triple H's interest in a faction, Ringside News noted that, "We've heard a report that Triple H lost interest in Judgment Day. We can confirm this is not true. We were told that Triple H has been behind Judgment Day since he put them together and remains behind them in a really big way." Staying on the topic of the chief of content, it was said by Rhea Ripley to Wes Styles that Triple H is able to be found before TV shows. "I love the fact that Triple H is down by the ring before the show, and you get to talk to him, we get to throw ideas back and forth. He explains things in a different way and it's very hands-on. That's one thing that I think I love the most. He makes you feel like you know exactly what's going on instead of guessing and then being nervous that you're going to stop something up." Mentioning his time in WWE, Ariya Daivari revealed that he tried to get his brother Sean back in the company, telling the AEW Unrestricted podcast, "When I got to WWE before he was a producer, I went to Vince and I pitched rehiring my brother. I showed him all our tag stuff. He really liked it. He liked our look, you know? We're two Persian brothers. Even though he's 5 years older, we're roughly the same height, you know? When I shaved my head bald, we looked very similar. He liked the look and everything. The hurdle was just hiring a new talent, was just getting someone new, getting someone hired, you know? Vince just always seemed to want to work with the guys who were already there. So asking to bring someone back in was kind of a tough sell and it didn't happen." Talking to Times Union, WWE Hall of Famer Hacksaw Jim Duggan recalled the highlights of his career, saying, "I'm lucky that I wrestled during the golden age of wrestling. Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, Andre the Giant, those guys were like Gary Cooper and Jimmy Stewart. It's not stand-up, haha jokes. I'm telling stories about my time in WWF. Folks still want to hear about the golden age. I'll get asked things like, hey, do you remember that time in '87 when you wrestled Andre the Giant in Baton Rouge? It's like sitting in a room with old friends telling stories. So much of what people hear is negative. They hear about TV series Dark Side of the Ring. The people that come to see me are wrestling fans, happy to see an old timer like me telling stories. I joke that when I started, people didn't have 200 TV channels. There was the news, game shows, and wrestling. After 40 years, the last thing I want to watch is wrestling. But I saw firsthand how it evolved, from high school gyms and auditoriums to 100,000 seat arenas. I like to tell people that I wrestled Dusty Rhodes, Ted DiBiase, and Cowboy Bob Orton in WWF, and by the time I retired, I wrestled all their kids in WWE. It was hard to stick around in a major company working major angles, but folks remembered me." When asked about where the infamous 2x4 came from, Duggan revealed, "Bruiser Brody used to say, carry something you can use to the ring, and as luck would have it, I looked down in the dressing room and here's this piece of wood. I started swinging that on my way to the ring and the crowd was parting like the Red Sea. Hacksaw was from my football days and the way I used to play. My character is just who I am. No one was writing my verbiage or telling me how to act in the ring." In a video uploaded to her Instagram, AEW Women's Champion Thunder Rosa gave an update as to when she'll return from injury. "Shout out to all the AEW Women's Division. You guys are doing great, but I'm getting better. Time is coming. I'm coming back soon. I know you guys are really eager to know when I'm coming back. The news will come later. I'm sorry, I don't have a timeline. I just want to thank everyone for being so happy to see me and asking to come back." Recalling an interesting pitch from Vince McMahon, Chris Jericho said on his podcast that, so then they came up with the idea to do Hell in a Cell. And it's just basically an attraction, and it's kind of a blow-off. And it's fine. But the thing I am really proud of for that Hell in a Cell is the first one, they didn't feature a crazy bump off the top of the cage. That was kind of a Hell in a Cell standard between Mick and Shawn. Took the first one at the side, and this guy's falling, and Rikishi is falling off the back of the truck, and all these other things. So we said, let's make this match a bridge to where people don't expect to have someone fall off every time, because sooner or later, you can't do that all the time, So then we thought, well, why don't we do the finish on top of the cage? That's interesting. And that hadn't been done at that point in time, right? And I remember when I pitched the idea, we pitched the idea to Vince. He's like, well, the idea of Hell in a Cell is nobody can get out of the door. How are you going to get up there? And then think, well, maybe we can crawl up the inside. Vince said, well, there's not a hole in the top of the cage, and how are you going to crawl across? And then Vince goes, why don't you take your arms and shoot some web to the top of the cage and slide up there? Like, what? Triple H goes, he went and saw Spider-Man last night. Former pro wrestler and coach for WWE, Dr. Tom Pritchard, spoke on Storytime with Dutch Mantel about how Vince McMahon is in real life. Vince McMahon is certainly one of the most unique people I've ever met. I've met some unique people, man. He's an intimidating guy. For me especially, because I never knew what to say to him. He would disarm me when he could be nice, and he could be empathetic and feel. I mean, he's not an ogre. He's not a monster. He was never a monster. To me, he was a guy who was driven. He knew what he wanted. He knew what he expected of people. And you can't be the head of an organization as big as WWE and not have to be stern and know what you want. You have to have a vision. He had a vision. I don't know when he did sleep. I have no idea. It is possible he is a vampire. Huge possibility. I don't know, man. He's just a different breed. He's like that Lauren Michaels. He's like those guys who are driven, and that's what drives him. They don't need food. They don't need sustenance. They just need something to take in and absorb. With the Big Show helping to make someone's Veterans Day, Kayla Braxton shared on Instagram, I want to tell y'all a quick story about a veteran I just met. Due to Hurricane Nicole, I had to spend a little extra time on the road this week. Instead of heading home like I usually do after hosting WWE's The Bump in Connecticut, I flew straight to Indianapolis to avoid the storm. Everything happens for a reason, and the following story, I believe, is the reason. On Wednesday evening, I wandered down to my hotel bar for a glass of wine and was riffing with a bartender. The subject of WWE came up, and an older gentleman at the end of the bar, who was quietly to himself, piped up when he heard the topic of WWE being discussed. Mike was his name, an Army veteran. He lit up reminiscing about a time nearly 20 years ago when he flew a former WWE superstar / legend in his plane. He seemed so proud of that moment. I quickly shot a text to the superstar he was referencing to see if he remembered Mike, even though I thought maybe he wouldn't remember since so much time had passed. Almost immediately after I sent the text, I received a text back. Mike was the man. Those were scary times over there then. Mike kept us safe, said Paul White, aka Big Show, without me even asking. Paul quickly followed up his text with a FaceTime, and I handed my phone to Mike, and they talked and caught up for a good 10 minutes or so. Paul made Mike's night. Hell, he may have made his whole year. The look on his face after hanging up that call, wow, I almost got emotional. Paul, thank you for honoring this veteran. You're one hell of a guy. And thank you to all of our veterans. We owe you everything. Talking about the failed Money in the Bank cash-in on the U.S. title during an open challenge on Raw from Austin Theory. Mark Henry said this about it on Busted Open Radio. I think the real money is in the performer. I heard the beginning of the show, it's a longer discussion and a longer answer as it relates to Bret Hart and what Road Dogg said. But the thing is easier with Austin Theory. I was not upset about Austin Theory cash-in the Money in the Bank briefcase. I was upset at the fact that it wouldn't be the NXT Championship because there was more of him to go back to NXT and being the NXT champion, which could lead to a springboard to the WWE Championship. On the sessions, Saraya spoke about her return to pro wrestling in AEW and mentioned the type of matches she would like to take part in. At first, it's more of a comeback story, an official comeback, and being in a different mindset of what I felt like I should have done the first time I came back. There are plenty of women that I want to have matches with eventually. I do want to do the stipulation matches that I didn't get to do in WWE that the girls get to do now. Also, working more character work, try and build. I'm not going to completely let go of Paige, but a more elevated version of her. There are so many things we can do now. We have such creative freedom. Saraya would also talk about how she thought she might have been able to wrestle in WWE after seeing Steve Austin have a street fight at WrestleMania. Stone Cold had that match with Kevin Owens, but he didn't bump that much. It was very limited, but he still had an amazing match, and that was inspiring to me. I probably could pull off doing a Stone Cold match, right? And it was just in my head. There wasn't a crazy amount of bumps because the story that they told was so fantastic. Maybe we can do something like that. Talking to Wrestling Inc. about the possibility of CM Punk signing with WWE, former WCW President Eric Bischoff gave a warning to Triple H, saying, "I can tell you from my perspective, I wanted to touch him with a 10-foot pole. I think CM Punk had a mystique because of WWE, and because of the pipe bomb interview, and because he walked out. That created this aura and mystique that AEW CEO Tony Khan brought to AEW and took advantage of for a minute." Talking further about Punk's value in pro wrestling, Bischoff noted that he's old, he's fragile. He was never in great shape to begin with. He didn't start out as an athlete, and now at 44 years old, he's fragile as hell. I'm sure he still has some diehard fans out there and all that everybody does, but the general audience, I think he left a really bad taste in their mouth, and they realize that that mystique is no longer there, and he's just another guy, so I don't see the value. I can't imagine it. And this was your pro wrestling news update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.